Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to dive into some serious AI talk. We're tackling excerpts from the book Artificial Intelligence today,
Mm.
and well, it's a wild ride through how AI has evolved.
It really is, yeah.
We're talking the history, the big wins, and even those moments where AI, well, totally flopped.
Right. It's easy to think AI is this unstoppable force, but
Yeah,
it's had a bumpy ride, to say the least.
it really has. One thing that blew my mind reading this book, getting a computer to see the world, even remotely like we do, even the simple things,
Yeah.
like way harder than it seems.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's just scratching the surface, so buckle up.
You hit the nail on the head there. It's fascinating how AI captures the imagination, right? But
Yes.
the reality is so much more complex, more intriguing than, say, what we see in the movies. It's not just about like robots taking over or anything like that. It's about understanding how these systems are already shaping how we live our lives.
For sure, and in ways we probably don't even realize. So let's rewind the clock a bit. The book starts us off at this Dartmouth workshop back in 1956.
Oh yeah, the Dartmouth
Yeah,
workshop,
like
huh?
the big bang of AI as a field, right? They were aiming high machines that could use language, solve problems like humans, the whole shebang,
Ambitious.
super ambitious. And it's kind of mind-blowing how relevant those goals still are, after all these years.
What's wild to me is that back then they thought cracking these problems would be way easier than it turned out to be. I mean, imagine trying to teach a computer to understand a joke just by like explaining grammar rules.
Right.
It just wouldn't get it. They were tackling these huge ideas, but with what we'd consider pretty limited tools like
But it wasn't all smooth sailing, right? AI went through these periods, and the book talks about this, called AI winters, where progress stalled and the funding dried up.
hitting a brick wall.
Yeah, kind of like the dot-com bubble bursting, but for AI.
Right, right. It's a classic pattern with emerging tech, though. This cycle of hype and then disappointment.
Oh yeah, you get so excited about the potential.
Exactly. We get excited, invest heavily, and then bam, reality sets in.
Reality bites.
So it begs the question, are we in a similar hype cycle now with deep learning? Are we on the verge of another AI winter?
Okay, now that is something to think about. Speaking of deep learning, though, the book dives into its rise, and this is where things get really interesting, with convolutional neural networks, connets for short.
Yeah, yes, convets.
It's like AI went from zero to hero in some areas, like computer vision.
Huge in computer vision.
Suddenly, they were beating humans at image recognition, even coming up with their own strategies to win games.
It's true. But there's a really fascinating story in the book about this ImageNet competition. A deep learning system crushed it, even figured out how to basically cheat to win at the game breakout. It highlights this pressure to create those wow moments in AI research.
Wait, AI cheating. That's both impressive and a little creepy at the same time.
It is, right. And it brings up a bigger point about how we measure success in AI. Like, are we pushing too hard for those headline-grabbing results, maybe at the expense of truly understanding how these systems work and, what their limitations are?
Right, because it's easy to get caught up in the excitement and forget that AI still has a long way to go.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of limitations, the book talks about how deep learning relies on these massive data sets. It made me wonder, what happens when AI encounters something it hasn't seen like a million times before?
Ah, that's the crux of the long tail problem. Imagine teaching a kid about animals, but only showing them pictures of cats and dogs. They'd be great at identifying cats and dogs, but then show them, say, a giraffe.
They'd be like, what is that?
Exactly. And it's similar with AI. Those edge cases, the things that are outside the norm, can really trip them up.
So even with all the progress, deep learning isn't the be-all and end-all of AI.
Nope.
The book also talks about this idea of overfitting, where a system gets so good at recognizing patterns in its training data that it doesn't do well with new data, like memorizing an answer key for a test instead of actually understanding the material.
Yeah. The perfect analogy. And then there's the issue of adversarial examples.
Oh, yeah, tell me more about that.
These are basically ways to trick AI systems by making tiny, almost invisible changes to the input. It's like, imagine showing a picture of a cat to an image recognition system, but you tweak a few pixels, suddenly it thinks it's looking at a toaster.
A toaster, that's so weird.
Right. It shows how different AI's understanding is from our own.
So deep learning can be fooled,
It can.
which I guess in a strange way is kind of reassuring, right?
Yeah.
It means AI isn't this all-knowing force it's sometimes made out to be.
Exactly.
But then that leads to a really big question, right? Like, can AI ever be truly creative? Can it really, understand the world the way we do?
Yeah, those are the million-dollar questions, aren't they? And the book actually it dives into this fascinating case study about a program called Experiments in Musical Intelligence, EMI for short.
Okay, I've heard of this.
Yeah, so this thing, it could compose music that sounded just like Bach or Mozart.
Wow, like composing like the
Oh
greats?
yeah, we're talking fooling actual music experts.
That's wild. But, okay, here's where it gets really interesting. The book mentions that the guy who created E&I, David Cope, he ended up destroying its database.
Yeah.
Why on earth would he do that?
Yeah. That's the question that kept me up at night. It's like he created this incredible thing, right? This thing that challenged how we define creativity and then just poof, gone. The book speculates that maybe Cope was wrestling with the implications of what he'd created, you know? Like, did it somehow cheapen human creativity if a machine could do it just as well? Was there something, I don't know, inherently soulless about AI-generated art? It really makes you think.
It's like something out of a sci-fi novel.
Yeah.
This idea that we could create something so powerful, so potentially disruptive, that we choose to shut it down.
Yeah, it's a bit unsettling.
But this question of AI understanding, it goes beyond music, right? Like, can we teach AI common sense? That kind of stuff that we humans we take for granted.
That's the thing about common sense, though. It's so hard to even define, let alone, like, program into a machine. The book talks about the challenges of teaching AI things like abstraction, and analogy making. They give this example of Bongard problems, these visual puzzles that are surprisingly tough for AI to crack because they rely on our, like, human understanding of concepts.
Oh, I've seen those.
Have you?
Yeah. And let me tell you, they're no joke. It's like my brain just gets it in this way that I can't even explain.
Exactly. And that's what makes replicating human intelligence so difficult. We have these intuitive knowledge systems, things like intuitive physics or intuitive biology, that we develop just by, like, living in the
Oh,
world.
they just do it.
AI is still trying to wrap its circuits around that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's like we have this whole other level of understanding just operating into the surface,
Yeah.
shaping how we see everything.
And that leads us to this even bigger, more mind-blowing question. What is consciousness? Is it something unique to humans, or could AI ever achieve that level of, I don't know, awareness? The book argues that replicating human-level creativity and understanding in AI is so difficult because it's not just about data. It's about intention, emotion, the ability to imagine, to predict.
Whoa, AI with feelings.
Yeah.
Now we're really getting into sci-fi territory.
Right. But the book makes this fascinating point about how humans were constantly running these mental simulations, like what-if scenarios that help us navigate the world.
Yeah, like all the time.
Exactly. It's like our brains are always a few steps ahead, anticipating what might happen next. That's a level of sophistication that AI is really only just starting to, dip its toes into.
Okay, so maybe AI won't be composing symphonies from the heart or writing award-winning novels anytime soon, but it's already having a huge impact on our lives, right?
Yeah.
So let's shift gears a bit and talk about some of those real-world implications of AI.
Let's do it.
I mean, we're talking self-driving cars, algorithms that seem to know us better than we know ourselves.
It's essential to ground this conversation in the here and now, right? AI isn't just some far-off fantasy. It's woven into our daily lives, and it's only going to become more so. We need to be asking some tough questions about the kind of future we're creating with these technologies.
It's almost like AI is this mirror reflecting back our own values, our own biases,
Absolutely.
even our own anxieties about the future.
Precisely. In this book, it doesn't shy away from those big, uncomfortable questions. It made me wonder, are we so focused on what AI can do that we've forgotten to ask what it should do?
It's a question we should be asking about all technology, really, but especially AI.
I think so, yeah.
Because it has the potential to be so powerful, so transformative.
It really does. And the book doesn't let us off the hook there. It really drives home this point that we need to be proactive, not reactive. We can't just sit back and let the future of AI happen to us. We need to be involved in shaping it, making sure it aligns with our values.
Okay, so how do we do that? Where do we even begin? It feels like such a massive, complex issue.
It is a massive issue, but that doesn't mean we should just throw up our hands and give up. The book, it emphasizes the importance of education, understanding these technologies so we can make informed decisions about their development and deployment. It's not about everyone becoming an AI expert overnight, but about having a basic understanding of how these systems work,
It's like that saying, knowledge is power. The more we understand about AI, the better equipped we'll be to navigate the challenges and really harness the opportunities that it presents.
Exactly. And it's not just about technical knowledge either. We need to be having those tough conversations, the sometimes uncomfortable conversations about ethics, about bias in AI, about what kind of future we want to create.
It's about being informed citizens, not just passive consumers of technology, of AI.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This book, it's a wake-up call. A reminder that we're not just along for the ride when it comes to AI. We're the ones behind the wheel, and it's time to start steering.
So after this deep dive into the world of AI, the big question is, how terrified should we be?
Instead of being terrified, I'd say let's be engaged, let's be informed, and yeah, maybe even a little bit hopeful. The future of AI, it isn't predetermined. It's something we create together.
I love that. A future full of possibilities, right? And this book, Artificial Intelligence, it's given us a lot to think about as we navigate this, well, this uncharted territory. So to our listeners, if you're looking for a crash course on AI, this book is a great place to start. It's thought-provoking, it's challenging, and honestly, I found it pretty empowering.
It is, and, even if you don't agree with everything in the book, it will definitely spark some interesting conversations.
For sure.
And get you thinking about AI in new ways.
Absolutely. Well said. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.